A cold email severed everything. No warning, no gratitude. They thought they could discard me like worthless trash. But in the world of finance, silence is a void that someone like me can fill. With a billion-dollar crash. The day they fired me from Sterling Capital Partners, they didn't just lose an employee, they lost control of their future. And when their IPO burned to ashes on Wall Street, I was the one holding the match, watching from my Brooklyn office as their empire crumbled in real time. My name is Samantha Reed, and until 3 hours ago, I was somebody, senior financial analyst at Sterling Capital Partners, architect of deals that moved markets, the woman who turned startup dreams into billion-dollar IPOs. Now I'm just another body clearing out a desk while security watches from the doorway. The email had arrived at 9:47 a.m., clinical and efficient like a surgical strike. Organizational restructuring. Position eliminated. Effective immediately. 7 years of 80-hour weeks, of missed birthdays and canceled vacations. Reduced to corporate euphemisms. My hands trembled as I dropped my Harvard Business School mug into a cardboard box. The same mug I'd drunk from during the all-nighter that saved the Pemberton deal. Sam. Marcus appeared at my cubicle entrance, his Armani suit impeccable, as always. We'd started on the same day, climbed the same ladder. Now he couldn't meet my eyes. I'm sorry, I had no idea they were. Save it. I kept packing. The framed photo of my team celebrating the Cipher Technologies IPO, my lucky Mont Blanc pen, the stress ball shaped like a bull that clients always commented on. Each item a piece of the life I'd built here, now just debris. The worst part wasn't the termination itself, it was the choreographed cruelty of it. Yesterday, I'd presented the quarterly projections to the board. This morning, Brad Hutchinson, barely out of Wharton, nephew of a board member, couldn't tell a derivative from a debenture, was moving his golf trophies into my office. My office with the partial view of the Hudson, the one I'd earned by landing 3 consecutive unicorn IPOs. Ma'am, we need to escort you out now. Security. 2 men who'd greeted me by name every morning for years, now addressed me like a stranger. A threat? I stood, my Louboutins clicking against the marble floor one last time. The trading floor stretched before me, a sea of monitors and Bloomberg terminals where I'd once commanded respect. Now, conversations halted as I passed. Jennifer from compliance studied her screen with sudden intensity. The junior analysts I'd mentored last quarter found urgent reasons to check their phones. Even Patricia, who'd cried on my shoulder through her divorce, turned away. The elevator ride lasted 17 floors and a lifetime. In the lobby, they confiscated my keycard with the efficiency of stripping rank from a disgraced officer. Outside, Manhattan's February wind cut through my cashmere coat. Taxis streamed past, yellow blurs in the gray morning, and I realized I had nowhere urgent to go. For the first time in 7 years, the market would open without me. My phone buzzed, a text from David, my supposed mentor, the one who'd promised I was partnership material just last month. It was a board decision, nothing personal, you'll land on your feet. Nothing personal. They'd waited until I'd secured the Northbridge Industries account, until all the groundwork for their IPO was laid, my relationships leveraged, my credibility spent. Then they'd pulled the trigger, installing Brad to take the credit and the commission. $23 million in fees that would now pad someone else's bonus. I stood on the corner of Broadway and Pine, watching Sterling's brass doors swing open and close, expelling and absorbing the worker ants who still belonged. The box in my arms grew heavier. 7 years. I'd given them 7 years of my prime, and they'd discarded me like a deprecated asset. A notification lit my phone. LinkedIn already. Samantha Reed updated her position at Sterling Capital Partners, former senior financial analyst. Former? The algorithm had already erased me. The apartment felt like a mausoleum at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. Sunlight streamed through windows I'd never seen at this hour, illuminating dust motes that danced above unopened mail and dying orchids. 3 weeks since Sterling, and I'd become a ghost haunting my own life. My mother called daily. Maybe it's a blessing, sweetheart. You could finally settle down, give me grandchildren. As if my ovaries were a consolation prize for professional annihilation. My sister texted inspirational quotes about doors closing and windows opening. My college friends stopped inviting me to dinner. $200 steakhouses felt obscene when you're counting unemployment checks. The networking events were worse. Former colleagues who'd once sought my advice now looked through me, their eyes already scanning for someone more useful. Oh, Sam, I heard about Sterling. Tough break. Hey, is that Richard from Goldman? They'd drift away, leaving me holding warm champagne and cold canapes, pretending to check emails that never came. I'd applied to 17 positions, 3 rejections, 14 silences. The market had already decided, damaged goods. Word traveled fast on Wall Street. Sterling didn't just fire people, they salted the earth. I heard the whispers through the grapevine. Difficult. Didn't fit the culture. Performance issues. Lies that became truth through repetition. Thursday afternoon, everything changed. Samantha, it's Michael Torres. My heart stopped. Michael ran Northbridge Industries, the tech unicorn I'd courted for 6 months before Sterling pulled the trigger on me. Their IPO would be the year's biggest tech offering, my baby, my masterpiece, now Brad's trophy. Michael, I kept my voice steady, professional. How's the IPO prep going? A pause. That's why I'm calling. Something feels off. Brad's team sent over the revised prospectus, and... Sam, it's amateur hour. They've butchered the risk disclosures, miscategorized our patents. The underwriting terms are highway robbery. I gripped the phone tighter. I'm sure Sterling will sort it out. Sterling doesn't give a damn. We're just another fee to them. You understood our technology, our vision. Brad keeps calling our proprietary AI some computer stuff. His frustration bled through the line. Look, I know you're not with them anymore, but I need advice. Coffee tomorrow. Unofficial, of course. Unofficial, of course. But as I hung up, something crystallized in my chest. Not hope. Something sharper. Revenge has a particular taste, metallic and electric, like blood in your mouth after a punch. I'd been drowning in self-pity. But Michael had just thrown me a weapon. I pulled out my laptop and began researching. SEC regulations on client solicitation. Non-compete clauses. Mine had enough holes to drive a truck through, thanks to Sterling's arrogant lawyers who never thought I'd fight back. State registration requirements for independent advisory firms. By 3 a.m., I had a plan. Not just to survive, but to destroy. The next morning, I met Michael at a coffee shop in Tribeca, far from Sterling's sphere. He looked exhausted, stress etched in lines around his eyes. They're going to undervalue you by 30%, I said without preamble. Brad doesn't understand your patent portfolio's worth. Sterling's just trying to flip you fast, grab their fees, move on. Tell me something I don't know. I leaned forward. What if you didn't have to accept it? The contracts are signed, Sam. Contracts can be broken, especially when there's material misrepresentation. Sterling promised you senior-level expertise. Brad isn't senior-level anything except his uncle's nephew. I slid a folder across the table. I've incorporated my own firm, Reed Capital Advisory. One client is all I need to start. One client who deserves better than Sterling's factory farm approach. Michael's eyes widened. You want me to jump ship? Weeks before IPO. I want you to save your company from being another casualty of Sterling's greed. The words tasted like ammunition. They fired me the day after I secured your account, used me to reel you in, then threw me away. They'll do the same to you once the offering closes. He was quiet for a long moment, coffee cooling between us. Outside, Wall Street warriors marched past in their uniforms, oblivious to the war being planned 3 feet away. This would destroy Sterling's credibility, he said slowly. Yes. Tank their reputation right before their own IPO next quarter. Yes. probably end some careers. I met his eyes. They ended mine first. Michael extended his hand across the table. As I shook it, I felt the tectonic plates of my world shifting. The humiliation hadn't disappeared, but it had transformed into something useful. Fuel. Sterling Capital Partners had made a fundamental error. They'd forgotten that in finance, information is power, relationships are currency. And a woman with nothing left to lose is the most dangerous player on the board. Read Capital Advisory. The name looked surreal on the frosted glass door of my Brooklyn office, a converted loft in Dumbo. A far cry from Sterling's Madison Avenue tower. But it was mine. Every square foot, every piece of furniture, every business card with raised lettering that I ran my fingers across like Braille, spelling out resurrection. The first month was surgery without anesthesia. I liquidated my 401k, taking the penalty hit like shrapnel. Sold the Cartier watch I'd bought myself after the Cypher deal. Moved from my Upper East Side apartment to a studio in Queens. Each sacrifice carved away the soft tissue of my former life, leaving only bone and determination. I built my network like a spider reconstructing its web. Coffee with Jack Morrison, the lawyer who'd left Skadden to go solo and knew every loophole in financial regulations. Drinks with Elena Vasquez, the compliance officer Sterling had wrongfully terminated 2 years prior. She had stories, documents, grudges preserved in amber. Lunch with Robert Kim, the journalist at the Financial Times who'd been sniffing around Sterling's accounting practices. "You're playing with fire, Sam," Jack warned over whiskey at a dive bar that Sterling's crowd wouldn't be caught dead in. Sterling has a legal team that eats small firms for breakfast. They have to find violations first. I slid him my operating documents. "Everything's bulletproof. I'm not poaching." Michael came to me. "I'm not violating non-compete. I'm consulting, not managing funds. I'm not defaming. Everything I tell clients is documented fact." Elena provided the ammunition. Screenshots of internal emails showing Sterling's systematic overcharging. Audit reports they'd buried. Employee complaints dismissed without investigation. "They destroyed my career," she said, handing over a USB drive. "Make them burn." But information was only half the equation. I needed credibility. And that meant building Reed Capital from vapor into substance. I hired 2 junior analysts straight from Columbia, hungry kids who reminded me of myself before Sterling's gold handcuffs. Rented a Bloomberg terminal that cost more than my rent. Created pitch decks that made my offerings look like Goldman Sachs's younger, smarter sister. The transformation wasn't just professional. I cut my hair short, sharp, traded pastels for armor black suits, learned to smile with my mouth while my eyes calculated trajectories of destruction. In the mirror each morning, I saw someone I didn't recognize, harder, leaner, dangerous. I liked her. 3 weeks into operations, I hosted my first client event, a breakfast seminar on IPO optimization, held at a boutique hotel in Soho. I sent invitations to every contact in my database, knowing most would delete them. Sterling had poisoned the well. My name was Professional Anthrax. 7 people showed up. 7 out of 300 invited. But Michael Torres was one of them. And he brought James Park from Meridian Robotics, who brought Lisa Fitzgerald from Quantum Solutions. Word traveled in whispers. Sam Reed had something Sterling didn't. She gave a damn. I presented for 90 minutes, dissecting Sterling's IPO process with surgical precision. No names, all public information, but everyone knew the target. I showed how they inflated fees, buried risks, prioritized speed over value, how their clients left an average of 18% on the table due to rushed valuations, how their senior partners hadn't personally managed an IPO in 3 years, delegating to associates who couldn't spell prospectus without autocorrect. "The old model is dying," I concluded, clicking to my final slide, a photo of Sterling's brass doors. "The question is, do you want to be buried with it, or do you want to help build what comes next?" Silence. Then James Park raised his hand. "Meridian's considering Sterling for our Series D. What would you recommend?" This was the moment, the crossroads where I could take the high road or plant the dynamite. I thought of Brad in my office, of 7 years evaporating in an email, of my former colleagues turned backs. I'd recommend you ask Sterling 3 questions. I picked up my marker, wrote on the whiteboard with deliberate strokes. 1. Which senior partner will personally manage your account? 2. Can they provide references from their last 3 IPOs that went public at or above projection? 3. Why did they fire the analyst who brought in 40% of their tech sector revenue last year? The room crackled with electricity. Everyone knew that analyst was me. Lisa Fitzgerald smiled, slow and sharp. Quantum's been having doubts about our representation. Perhaps we should talk. By week's end, I had 3 signed letters of intent. Small firms, not the whales yet, but blood in the water nonetheless. Reed Capital Advisory was no longer a revenge fantasy scribbled in a notebook at 3 a.m. It was real, with clients and revenue and a growing reputation as the firm that told truth in an industry built on beautiful lies. I stood at my office window, watching the sun set over Manhattan's skyline. Sterling's tower gleamed in the distance, a glass and steel monument to everything I'd lost. But now I had something they didn't. Nothing left to lose and everything to gain. The real war was about to begin. Northbridge Industries' headquarters occupied 3 floors of a Chelsea high-rise, all exposed brick and Edison bulbs, startup chic with unicorn money. I arrived at 9 p.m., when the office would be empty except for Michael Torres and his C-suite, gathered for what they thought was a routine IPO strategy session. They didn't know I'd spent 2 weeks crafting the perfect bullet. Gentlemen, lady, I nodded to their CFO, Catherine Wu. Let's discuss why Sterling Capital is about to cost you $800 million. The room went silent. I clicked my remote, and Sterling's IPO prospectus for Northbridge filled the screen, the one Brad's team had filed with the SEC last week. Page 47. Click. Your patent portfolio. Sterling valued it at $200 million. The 3 independent assessments I commissioned. Click. Average valuation, $550 million. That's not a rounding error. That's malpractice. Michael leaned forward. Sterling said the conservative valuation would ensure strong post-IPO performance. Sterling wants to ensure their friends at Blackstone can buy in cheap and flip high. I pulled up trading records. Same pattern with their last 4 tech IPOs. Undervalue by 30%. Allocate shares to preferred clients. Those clients dump within 6 months for massive profits. Guess who doesn't profit? The company that actually built the technology. Catherine was already calculating on her phone. If this is accurate, we're leaving a fortune on the table. Not leaving. Being robbed. I moved to the whiteboard, writing numbers with aggressive precision. Your AI platform processes 3 billion transactions daily. Sterling's prospectus calls it proprietary software. They don't mention your 7 foundational patents, your DARPA contracts, or that Google tried to acquire you for $4 billion last year. Why? Because Brad Hutchinson doesn't understand technology beyond his iPhone apps. The CTO, David Park, slammed his laptop shut. We've been saying this for weeks. They keep telling us we don't understand finance. You understand your worth. Sterling understands their fees. I turned back to face them, letting silence build tension. Northbridge has 43 days until IPO. Sterling has you locked in contracts that would cost $12 million to break. Unless what? Michael's voice was tight. I smiled, the expression I'd practiced in mirrors until it looked like absolution and damnation simultaneously. Unless Sterling materially breaches their fiduciary duty, which they did the moment they assigned Brad Hutchinson to your account without disclosing his complete lack of relevant experience. From my briefcase, I produced a folder thick with evidence. Brad's Harvard MBA thesis, bought from an essay mill. I have the receipts. His supposed internship at McKinsey. He was in rehab that summer. I have the admission records. His uncle got him into Sterling, and Sterling gave him your IPO as a training exercise. Catherine grabbed the folder, scanning documents with growing fury. This is fraud. This is leverage. I stood, gathering my materials with theatrical precision. Reed Capital Advisory has prepared an alternative IPO strategy, proper valuations, premium underwriters, and a roadshow that won't treat you like another ticker symbol. We can have you market ready in 30 days. Sterling will sue us into oblivion, David protested. Sterling will be too busy explaining to the SEC why they've been systematically undervaluing client assets. I paused at the door. Monday morning, 9 a.m. The Financial Times runs a story about irregularities in tech IPO valuations. Tuesday, the SEC announces an investigation. Wednesday, Sterling's own IPO gets postponed indefinitely. Michael stood. Unless we make the switch quietly. Unless you exercise your right to competent representation. I handed him my card, the raised letters catching the light. You have 72 hours before the story runs. My offer expires in 24. The elevator down felt like descent from a tightrope. My hands shook as I hailed a cab. Everything depended on Michael's decision. If he stayed with Sterling, if he warned them, I'd be finished, blacklisted, sued, potentially prosecuted. But I knew Michael Torres. I'd studied him like a chess opponent. He built Northbridge from nothing, coded the first iteration himself in a garage. He wouldn't let Sterling steal his life's work to pad Brad Hutchinson's trust fund. My phone buzzed at 3 a.m. Send the contracts. We're in. The call came during my morning run along the East River. Marcus, my former colleague, sounding like he'd aged a decade in a week. Sam, what the hell are you doing? I slowed to a walk, endorphins mixing with adrenaline. Morning cardio, you should try it. Don't play games. Northbridge just sent a termination letter. Legal's going insane. Thompson's talking about criminal charges. Thompson, Sterling's chief legal counsel, the man who'd smiled while security escorted me out. Criminal charges require crimes. Marcus, you stole our client. I offered better service to a client you were underserving. That's called capitalism. I watched a ferry cross toward Staten Island, carrying commuters to another day of corporate servitude. How's Brad handling it? Silence, then. He's been suspended pending review. The news hit like champagne bubbles. Effervescent victory. Suspended, whatever for. You know exactly what for. That Times article, the essay mill allegations. Sam, this is scorched earth. This is consequences. I started running again, faster now. Sterling fired me to give my work to an incompetent nepotism hire. Did you think I'd send a thank you card? We're investigating everything, every email you sent, every meeting you took. If you used any Sterling resources, any confidential information. Investigate away. I built my case on publicly available information and Sterling's own incompetence. Tell Thompson I look forward to discovery. I have some questions about Sterling's billing practices I'd love to ask under oath. I hung up and sprinted the last mile, lungs burning with effort and satisfaction. By noon, Sterling's counterattack began. My email filled with legal threats. Former clients received calls warning them about my instability and questionable ethics. A private investigator appeared outside my office, taking photos with the subtlety of a heart attack. Elena called from her contact at Sterling. They're panicking. Emergency board meeting tonight. Rumors about pushing the IPO to next quarter. Good, let them sweat. But Sterling had resources, I didn't. By Thursday, 3 of my small clients had withdrawn their letters of intent, spooked by legal threats. My Columbia hires received job offers from Sterling at double their salaries, one accepted. The Financial Times story I'd planted got killed, replaced by a puff piece about Sterling's revolutionary new leadership development program. I sat in my empty office at midnight, reassessing. Northbridge was secured. But one client wouldn't destroy Sterling. I needed to hit them harder, deeper. I needed to make it personal. The solution came from an unexpected source. Patricia, my former colleague who'd looked away as security marched me out, appeared at my office Monday morning. I can't do it anymore, she said, clutching a flash drive. What they're doing, what they did to you, it's wrong. What's on the drive, Patricia? Everything. Internal emails about the IPO manipulation scheme. Thompson's communications with the SEC commissioners he's been bribing. The real reason they fired you. You were getting too close to uncovering their synthetic share creation program. My blood chilled. Synthetic shares? They've been creating phantom shares for major IPOs, selling them to multiple buyers, then covering the trail post-launch. It's been going on for 3 years. The exposure is... Sam, it's in the billions. I stared at the drive. This wasn't just ammunition. It was a nuclear weapon. Using it wouldn't just damage Sterling. It would vaporize them. Why bring this to me? Patricia's eyes were red-rimmed. Because after they fired you, they promoted Brad into your position. And yesterday, they fired me for redundancy. 7 years. Sam, same as you. They chew us up and spit us out while the partners buy New Hampton's houses with our blood. I took the drive, feeling its weight like gravity itself. You know what this means? If I use this, Sterling doesn't just stumble. It dies. Good. Patricia's voice was steel. Burn it all down. After she left, I sat alone with the drive, rolling it between my fingers. This was beyond revenge now. This was revolution. Sterling's IPO was in 4 weeks. If I timed it right, if I played every card perfectly, I could turn their triumph into a public execution. I inserted the drive into my laptop and began reading. 3 hours later, I called Michael Torres. How would you like to not just leave Sterling, but be the client that exposed the biggest financial fraud since Enron? His pause was long, calculating. Keep talking. I have documents that prove Sterling has been defrauding every IPO client for 3 years. If Northbridge goes public with this, backed by evidence, you're not just another unicorn. You're the company that stood up to Wall Street corruption. The media attention alone would double your valuation. And Sterling. I looked out at their distant tower, imagining it crumbling floor by floor. Sterling becomes a case study in business schools about how hubris destroys empires. Send me everything. The war room at Reed Capital looked like a Hollywood thriller set. Whiteboards covered with timelines, laptops running encryption software, burner phones labeled by purpose. We had 2 weeks until Sterling's IPO, 1 week until Northbridge's rescheduled debut. Every move had to be surgical. Catherine Wu from Northbridge worked beside me, her CFO precision complementing my strategic fury. If we release everything at once, it's chaos. Too much for the media to digest. Agreed, we need a cascade. I mapped out the attack on the wall. Monday, Northbridge announces the switch to Reed Capital, citing Sterling's incompetence. Tuesday, leak select emails about undervaluation to the Wall Street Journal. Wednesday, Patricia goes on record about the toxic culture. Thursday, drop the synthetic shares bomb. Friday, Sterling's IPO becomes a funeral. My phone buzzed. Robert Kim from Financial Times. My editor's getting pressure to kill the story. Sterling's PR firm is threatening to pull all advertising. I texted back, tell your editor I have documents that will win them a Pulitzer. Sterling won't be around to pull advertising once this breaks. But Sterling wasn't passive prey. Thursday afternoon, my assistant rushed in, pale-faced. There's a video circulating from your last company Christmas party at Sterling. My stomach dropped as I watched the cleverly edited footage, me, clearly drunk, ranting about burning it all down, destroying the bastards, taking what's mine. Stripped of context, I'd been joking about a competitive deal with Goldman. It looked like the ravings of an unstable ex-employee. Within hours, it was on every finance blog. Disgraced analyst's revenge plot exposed. Northbridge risks everything on unstable advisor. My inbox filled with concerned messages from Northbridge's board. Michael called, voice tense. Our investors are spooked. They're saying we should go back to Sterling, take the safe route. That's what Sterling wants. Don't you see? They're terrified. I pulled up market data. Look at their pre-IPO trades. Insiders are already selling. They know what's coming. Sam, if this goes wrong, Northbridge is finished. My life's work? Your life's work deserves better than being Sterling's cash cow. I switched to video call, letting him see my conviction. Michael, they edited that video because they have no real defense. We have documents, witnesses, proof. They have desperate PR tricks. Who do you think wins that fight? Friday brought escalation. A process server arrived with a restraining order, claiming I was harassing Sterling employees. My bank called. Sterling's lawyers had filed liens against my accounts, claiming potential damages. The private investigator outside became 3 private investigators. I worked through the weekend, fueled by rage and coffee. With Catherine, we prepared Northbridge's new prospectus, honest valuations, transparent risks, revolutionary technology properly explained. It was everything Sterling's version wasn't. Truthful. Sunday night. I met with my lawyer Jack in his office, reviewing our arsenal one final time. Once we file with the SEC, there's no going back, he warned. Sterling will unleash everything. You could face personal bankruptcy, criminal investigation, industry blacklisting. I'm already blacklisted. As for the rest, I signed the filing documents. Sterling taught me that success requires acceptable casualties. They just never imagined they'd be the casualty. Monday morning, 5 a.m., I stood in my office, watching the city wake up. In 3 hours, the announcement would go live. Northbridge Industries, the year's hottest IPO, was leaving Sterling Capital for Reed Capital Advisory. The press release included one devastating line. Due to Sterling's systematic undervaluation and assignment of unqualified personnel to our account, my phone sat silent on the desk, waiting to explode with calls, threats, fury. Sterling's IPO roadshow started today. Their executives would be in a Goldman Sachs conference room, pitching their firm's stability and excellence to institutional investors. When the news broke, I imagined Thompson's face, Brad's panic, the board's emergency calls. They'd fired me with an email on a Tuesday morning. I was returning the favor with a market-moving announcement on a Monday. Catherine arrived at 7, holding coffee and determination. The SEC filing is confirmed. Northbridge's new prospectus is live. We're really doing this. No, I corrected, watching Sterling's stock price on my screen. We've already done it. Now we just watch them realize it. At 8 a.m., Bloomberg flashed the headline, Northbridge dumps Sterling Capital weeks before IPO. At 8:03, Sterling's pre-IPO trading price dropped 7%. At 8:07, my phone rang. Thompson. I let it go to voicemail, savoring each unanswered ring like a symphony note. The battle was over. The war was about to begin. IPO day. Sterling Capital's headquarters looked like a crime scene wrapped in Armani suits. I watched from across the street, anonymous in sunglasses and a baseball cap, as employees streamed out carrying cardboard boxes, the same boxes I'd carried 6 months ago. The numbers on my phone told the story better than any headline. Sterling opened at $45 per share, half their target price. By noon, they were at $31. Buy, close, $22. $3 billion in market cap, evaporated like morning mist. The synthetic shares revelation had detonated Thursday night, exactly as planned. Patricia's documents, verified by 3 independent sources, proved Sterling had sold the same shares to multiple buyers across 17 IPOs. The SEC's emergency injunction hit Friday morning. Trading halted, investigations launched. Thompson arrested at his Hamptons house during his daughter's engagement party, but the death blow came from an unexpected source. Brad Hutchinson, facing personal fraud charges, flipped. He provided emails, recordings, proof that Sterling's entire leadership knew about and profited from the scheme. His uncle, board member Charles Hutchinson, was photographed doing a perp walk in handcuffs Monday morning. I stood in my Brooklyn office, watching the coverage on 6 screens. CNN, Bloomberg, CNBC, all running the same story. Sterling Capital collapses in worst financial fraud since 2008. Michael Torres called exhausted but victorious. Northbridge closed up 40%. We're already trading above Google's offer price. You earned it. Your technology finally got the valuation it deserved. Sam. He paused. Sterling's finished. Completely finished. The FBI raided their offices this morning. They're estimating 5,000 job losses when the dust settles. 5,000. I thought of the junior analysts, the admins, the IT staff who had no part in the fraud. Collateral damage? The phrase tasted bitter. Those employees will land somewhere. The good ones always do. And the partners? I pulled up the latest reports. Henderson's assets are frozen. Morrison fled to Dubai. Richardson had a heart attack. He's in intensive care. And Thompson? I savored this part. 25 to life, if convicted on all charges. Catherine knocked, entering with champagne and a grim smile. The Wall Street Journal wants an exclusive. Forbes is calling you the woman who killed Sterling Capital. I didn't kill them. I just showed everyone the corpse was already rotting. That evening, I walked through Sterling's lobby one last time. The security guards were gone, replaced by federal agents cataloging evidence. The trading floor, once electric with activity, stood dark and silent. My old office, Brad's brief office, had crime scene tape across the door. I found my reflection in the brass elevator doors, the same doors that had expelled me 6 months ago. The woman staring back looked older, harder, successful in all the ways that mattered and empty in all the ways that counted. Ms. Reed? I turned. A young woman stood there, maybe 23, clutching a Sterling Capital messenger bag like a life preserver. I was an analyst here. First year. Her voice cracked. I just wanted to ask. Why? We all lost our jobs. Our savings in company stock. Everything. The accusation in her eyes was familiar. I'd worn the same expression 6 months ago. What's your name? Jennifer Martinez. Jennifer, Sterling stole from clients for years. They destroyed careers for sport. They were always going to collapse. I just controlled the timing. But we didn't know. The junior staff, I didn't know either until they threw me away. I pulled out my card. Reed Capital is hiring. We need analysts who understand that loyalty should flow both ways. She took the card with shaking fingers. You're offering me a job after destroying my last one? I'm offering you a chance to build something better. Sterling taught us that the old world eats its young. Maybe it's time the young bite back. I left her in the lobby, staring at my card like it might explode. Outside, Manhattan's evening rush swirled past, oblivious to the empire that had just fallen. My phone showed 43 missed calls from reporters, competitors, clients wanting Reed Capital's services. I deleted them all and called Patricia instead. We did it. No, she corrected. You did it. I just provided ammunition. How does it feel? A long pause. Empty. I thought I'd feel victorious, but I just feel empty. I knew the feeling. Revenge, perfectly executed, tasted like ash and ambition. Sterling was gone, but the hole they'd torn in me remained, just lined with success now instead of failure. Want to get drunk and pretend we're happy about it? God, yes. As I walked toward the bar, my phone buzzed with one final message. Marcus, congratulations. Sam, you won. Hope it was worth becoming them. I deleted his message and kept walking. He was wrong. I hadn't become Sterling Capital. I'd become something worse, their reckoning. The bar was intentionally dive, all sticky floors and broken dreams. The kind of place Sterling's crowd would consider beneath them. Patricia and I sat in a corner booth, watching the news coverage on muted TVs while working through our third round of whiskey. To Sterling Capital, Patricia raised her glass. May they rot in federal prison. We clinked glasses, but the victory felt hollow. Around us, regular people lived regular lives, unaware that we'd just orchestrated one of Wall Street's greatest implosions. My daughter called today, Patricia said quietly. Asked if I was one of the bad guys now. How do you answer that? You tell her the bad guys were the ones who fired single mothers for profit margins. I signaled for another round. We just held up a mirror. The bartender, a grizzled man who'd seen too many Wall Street casualties, set down our drinks. You two are the Sterling killers, aren't you? Recognized you from the news. We said nothing. Good, he said simply. Those bastards foreclosed on my brother's house in Ewood 8. Karma's a beautiful thing. After he walked away, Patricia laughed bitterly. Karma, is that what we're calling it? My phone lit up with a notification. Northbridge's stock had hit a new high in after-hours trading. My percentage meant I was now worth 8 figures. From fired to fortune in 6 months, all it cost was my soul and 5,000 jobs. I keep thinking about that analyst. I admitted. Jennifer, 23 years old, probably 6 figures in student debt, and I destroyed her first job. Sterling destroyed her job when they decided fraud was a business model. Did they? Or did we just accelerate the inevitable? I turned the glass in my hands, watching amber liquid catch the light. Michael asked me something yesterday. He said, "What's next, Sam? You've slain the dragon. What do you do after the war?" What did you tell him? Nothing, because I don't know. I looked around the bar, at normal people with normal problems. For 6 months, revenge was my oxygen. Every morning, I woke up planning Sterling's destruction. Now they're gone, and I trailed off. Rich, powerful, feared, Patricia supplied. Empty. We sat in silence, 2 women who'd won everything and felt nothing. My phone rang, unknown number, but I recognized the area code, Boston, Harvard Business School. Ms. Reed, this is Dean Harrison. We'd like to invite you to speak at our Ethics in Finance Symposium. Your takedown of Sterling Capital is already being taught as a case study. Ethics in Finance, the irony was so sharp it could cut glass. I'll consider it. After I hung up, Patricia was staring at me. Ethics? They want you to teach ethics? The winner writes the history books. And technically, everything I did was legal. Legal and ethical aren't the same thing. Neither are wrong and unprofitable. Sterling taught me that. We finished our drinks in contemplative silence. Outside, New York churned on, indifferent to our moral crisis. A notification popped up. Reed Capital had received 17 new client inquiries since market close. Companies wanted the firm that had toppled Sterling. They wanted the killer's touch. I should go, Patricia said finally. Early meeting tomorrow. Job interview at Morgan Stanley. You'll get it. You're the woman who exposed Sterling Capital. We're both branded now, aren't we? Forever the Sterling killers. She gathered her things, then paused. Sam, do you regret it? I thought of my last day at Sterling, the humiliation, the empty apartment, the weeks of rejection. Then I thought of Thompson in handcuffs. Brad's career destroyed, Sterling's brass doors closed forever. No. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that places like Sterling exist. But revenge itself? No regrets. Patricia nodded and left. Tricia nodded. I stayed, nursing one final drink, watching the news cycle repeat Sterling's collapse on endless loop. A text from Michael. Celebrating Northbridge's success tomorrow night. You'll be there. I typed back. Wouldn't miss it. Another from Jennifer Martinez, the young analyst. I start Monday. Thank you for the second chance. Maybe that was the answer. Not redemption, that ship had sailed with Sterling's IPO, but building something better from the ashes. Reed Capital could be different. Would be different. Or maybe I was just telling myself pretty lies to sleep at night. I left cash on the bar and walked out into the New York night. The city sparkled with ambition and avarice. Every light a dream or a scheme. 6 months ago, Sterling Capital had expelled me from this world. Now I owned a piece of it. Paid for with their destruction. At the corner, I turned for one last look at Sterling's dark tower. By month's end, it would be sold, renamed, repurposed. all trace of sterling capital scrubbed away like bloodstains. But I would remember every slight, every betrayal, every moment that led to their downfall. They'd fired me with an email on a cold February morning. I'd ended them with a market crash on a hot August afternoon. The scales were balanced. The war was over. I turned away from the tower and walked home through empty streets, my footsteps echoing like a countdown that had finally reached 0. In my pocket, my phone buzzed with opportunities, but I didn't check it. Tomorrow, I'd build empires. Tonight, I'd savor the ashes of the one I'd burned. They'd taught me that success required acceptable casualties. They just never imagined they'd be the casualty. And that cold email that started it all. I still had it, printed and framed on my office wall. A reminder that in the world of high finance, today's executioner could be tomorrow's executed. The only question was, which side of the axe would you be on when the blade finally fell? Thank you for listening to this story of corporate revenge. If you're listening to this while commuting through your own corporate battlefield, or perhaps plotting your own office uprising, drop a comment below and let us know where in the world you're tuning in from. Subscribe to the channel for more stories of workplace justice and share your thoughts. Have you ever dreamed of taking down a toxic employer? The comment section is your safe space to confess. Until next time, remember, the best revenge is massive success, and sometimes a little corporate destruction.